Vice Cop Max Ballister rolls into North Central following a lead on a gang. The moment he arrives, he spots a group of corrupt cops in the middle of the road, supposedly arresting several gangsters. But instead of logging the evidence, they confiscate the gang's stash and quietly pass it to a man waiting in another car. Max catches the entire exchange on camera. Back home, he studies the photos, trying to figure out who those men really were. Then the phone rings. It is Gary, his informant, asking for an urgent meeting, and Max promises to see him within the hour. His wife tries to stop him, but Max assures her he will be back soon. A short while later, in the same slum he visited earlier, Max sits alone in his car, tense and impatient, his eyes scanning the street. Gary finally calls, but the loud music around him drowns out whatever he is saying. Then Max notices a car approaching. He steps out, expecting contact, but the driver raises a gun and opens fire on him without hesitation. Soon after, Max is laid to rest with gunshots fired in his honor. From behind a tree, his father, Simon, watches as Max's mother and widow break down in tears. Once the mourners leave, Simon approaches his ex-wife. She tells him the police are calling it a random gang shooting and claim they may never find the killer, but she does not believe that for a second.
I won't accept that option, Simon. Someone murdered Max. Someone shot him in cold blood.
She then asks Simon to find the man who murdered their son, handing over Max's belongings and the police reports to help him uncover the truth. Not long after, Simon drives to the very street where Max was killed. He stops at a convenience store that also doubles as a housing facility and asks for a vacant room. The landlady warns him that this is no place for someone like him, but Simon has already made up his mind. She shows him a room so filthy it looks like rats furnished it, but Simon simply looks around and says it is perfect. He asks whether she knows anything about the cop who was killed on that street, but she claims she does not. He pays the rent, and she introduces herself as Alice Park. Later, Simon steps outside and finds two local goons waiting for him. One built like Captain Obesity, and the other looking like Skinnyhead's little cousin. When the bigger one tells him he is trespassing, Simon calmly says he has personal business there, and suggests the idiot piss off. That only makes Captain Obesity angrier, but Simon keeps pushing him.
Listen, I got some personal stuff going on that makes me have to be here, so why don't you take your lively, chubby ass and get the fuck off my car?
It's my fucking hood.
I'm starting to get scared.
The second the big man tries to swing, Simon drops him with a single punch, then sends Skinnyhead crashing to the ground with a kick. Skinnyhead scrambles back up and pulls a gun, but Simon strips it from his hand and boots him straight back into his car. Inside the store, Alice catches the chaos unfolding and quickly retreats. Simon then knocks Captain Obesity's gun aside and tells him to spread the word down the whole street. Until he finds the man who killed his son, nobody is safe.
Tell every motherfucker on the street they not safe till I find the motherfucker who killed my son.
After that, Simon gathers his things and heads back inside. As he searches through Max's belongings, he finds Detective Frank Shaw's card. Not long after, he goes to the precinct, where one of the officers offers his condolences and reveals that Shaw is the detective leading Max's case. Simon is taken upstairs to meet him, and Shaw says the chances of finding Max's killer are slim to none. In his view, Max probably died in a random drive-by.
The chances of finding your son's killer are slim to none. Believe me, he was one of ours and we don't take that lightly, but it looks like it was a random gang shooting.
Simon can barely hide his disappointment, hearing that from the man in charge of the investigation. But Shaw remains cold and clinical. He says there were 487 homicides the previous year, which was actually fewer than the year before. Then he narrows it down further, explaining that the shooter likely never even stepped out of the car. Still, they did recover the .40 caliber bullet that killed Max, which at least tells them what kind of weapon was used. Simon asks if he can call Shaw for updates on the case, but as Shaw writes his number on a card, Simon immediately recognizes it as the same number he found among Max's belongings. He asks whether Shaw ever knew his son personally, but Shaw denies it, saying Max worked out of headquarters and they never met. Simon thanks him, walks out, then calls the number from a restricted line and confirms that it is the exact same one he saw before. Later that night, Simon returns to his new apartment and finds Gary Morrison pacing inside. He instantly pulls a gun on him, and Gary rushes to explain that he heard Simon had been asking questions, so he came to help. He reveals that he had been working as Max's confidential informant before Max died.
I got you, so you a snitch.
Man, that's a rude term, man. I was a CI, right? I was a confidential informant.
In other words, you're a snitch.
Once Gary is satisfied that Simon is not a cop, he gets straight to the point. Max had been shutting down East Side operations, and the gang was far from happy about it. He warns Simon that if he hangs around too long, they will come for him next. Simon tells him to give up their location before that happens, and Gary reveals that their base is at a closed-down construction site in Florence, the same place where Max was killed. Gary tries to stop him, warning that he is going to get himself killed, but Simon is already past the point of turning back. He wants the man who murdered his son.
I really don't care what their business is. I just want the motherfucker to kill my son.
Gary apologizes for what happened to Max, then leaves. Meanwhile, Detective Shaw and another detective debate whether Gary might have killed Max himself. The other cop is convinced Gary did it, but Shaw dismisses the idea, saying Gary is too chicken shit to pull something like that off. His older brother Isaiah, though, is a different story. As an East Side gangster trying to climb the ranks, killing Max could have been his way in. The other detective suggests bringing Isaiah in, but Shaw says no. They wait until they take down the gang's leader, Armand. Later, Simon breaks into the East Side gang's base looking for answers, only to find the place empty. That changes fast when several gangsters show up and cut off his search. Simon twists the gun out of one thug's hand and kicks him aside, then drops another one charging at him. In the back, Big Boy steps up ready to fight, but Simon slaps him so hard he crashes to the ground.
Come on, motherfucker, you...
Once the room is quiet, Simon walks over to one of the surviving thugs and demands to know who killed his son. The idiot only curses at him, so Simon shoots off his ear. He turns to the other thug and asks the same question. Panicked, the man blurts out that they were not the ones who did it, and Simon leaves. Elsewhere, Armand Tucker, the head of the East Side gang, meets with a dirty cop and says he has been hearing that the man has been broadcasting his business to CNN. The cop pushes back, insisting he is no snitch, and reminds Armand that he even brought him a major deal because he wanted to do business with him. But under the pretense of cutting him a check, Armand pulls a gun instead and shoots him dead. Detective Shaw walks in moments later and asks what Armand has done, but Armand brushes it off, saying he did not like the way the fancy cop was talking. Right then, Simon's earlier punching bags stumble in, and Armand demands to know what happened to them. Punk Lee just replies that some white boy jumped them. He adds that Bandana Boy is deaf now because his ear got shot off.
One dude smoked 2 of my motherfuckers. What are y'all, bitches? Don't you buy y'all dresses? You niggas want miniskirts, tutus?
Shaw confirms that the man they are talking about is Simon Ballister and reminds Armand that this is the same man he warned him about. Armand fires back that he has spent too much money on all of this to let anyone ruin his plans. Elsewhere, Simon's landlady Alice asks whether he picked up those fighting skills in the military.
You're not a salesman, Simon. And you're not a cop. And someone taught you how to fight like that.
No. All that fighting stuff, I got that off of home videos.
Whatever.
Simon then asks instead about the gangsters who showed up the other day, and Alice tells him they are from Hyde Park, a gang run by a Mexican gangster named Chivo. She asks if he thinks they had anything to do with Max's death, but Simon says he is not sure. Later, while driving through the hood, Simon calls Max's widow. She admits Max always spoke highly of him and says the funeral was the first time she finally got to see him. Simon apologizes for not coming sooner and asks whether the police have questioned her. But she says they seemed more interested in collecting whatever files Max had gathered before his death. Simon promises her that he will find the man who killed her husband. Not long after, Simon pulls up while Gary is outside watching his boys play basketball. Gary walks over in disbelief, asking whether Simon has completely lost his mind. He warns him that people are watching from everywhere, and if anyone sees him getting into that car, he is dead. By now, word has already spread about Simon's clash with the East Side gangsters. But Simon makes it clear he does not care who ordered the hit.
I don't care who ordered the hit. I don't care whose business is what. I just want to know who killed my son.
He tells Gary to get in, then pushes him to say everything he knows. Gary tells him about the Mexican gangster Chivo, saying he likely had someone do the drive-by on Max. Simon asks why Chivo would want his son dead, and Gary explains that Chivo runs the Hyde Park crew, controlling most of the bookie joints in the area. Max had been shutting down a lot of their operations, and maybe that had started getting under Chivo's skin. Simon asks where he can find him, and Gary tells him Chivo owns a club on Slauson Street. Promising to find the man responsible, Simon drives off. But the whole exchange has already been seen by Gary's older brother Isaiah and one of his boys, Benny, who tells him to keep Gary in line. Isaiah pulls up on Gary and asks what Simon wanted. Gary tries to brush it off, but Isaiah keeps pressing until he finally admits that he told Simon where to find Chivo. Since Chivo is the head of a rival gang, Gary gets off lightly this time. Isaiah then warns him never to speak to Simon again, or he will beat his ass.
You stay the fuck away from him, you feel me?
He ain't looking for me.
I don't give a fuck. If I see you with him again, I'm gonna whoop your ass, alright?
Alright, man.
Yo, tell moms I won't be home tonight.
Fine.
I'm out, yo.
Alright.
Later, Simon arrives at the club and approaches the bouncer, who is unnecessarily rude to a man on crutches. He tells Simon it is a private club. His name is not on the list, and he needs to leave. Simon calmly replies that the man looks smart, so he will give him $5 if he lets him in. Amused by his nerve, the bouncer smirks and says Simon has got a date with him if he makes it out alive. Inside, Simon drops one of the men almost immediately, then heads straight for Chivo, who is busy having his own little chick flicks and chill moment. Chivo leads him to a more private section and says he has heard Simon has been folding his men all over town. Simon asks if he knows who killed his son, but Chivo says he had no reason to kill Max. According to him, they were both serving the community in their own way. Simon reminds him that Max shut down several of his joints, but Chivo barely reacts, saying those spots probably would have been running again the very next day like nothing happened.
We're a lot alike. Both pillars of the community.
Well, you know, seems like maybe he took down a few of your joints.
So what? This is the barrio. Takes down one of my joints today, it's back up tomorrow. And besides, we all know what kind of heat a dead cop brings.
He then tells Simon that the East Side gangsters were likely behind Max's death. Simon asks whether Chivo is just trying to send him off to wipe out the competition, and Chivo admits those gangsters have been creeping into his operations for years. Even so, he insists he is telling the truth. He says he respected Max and swears East Side is responsible. Simon believes him, and Chivo calls for a bottle of tequila. The two men raise a glass to finding the person who killed Simon's son. On the way out, the bouncer stops Simon with bad intentions, but Simon twists him up and drops him with a kick. He then walks over to the man on crutches and hands him the bottle of tequila for his troubles. Unbeknownst to Simon, Detective Shaw is watching from his car and orders that he be kept under 24-hour surveillance. Back at Simon's place, Alice tells him how much she admires him for taking on Max's case and says they must have been close. Simon admits he still has not fully accepted his son's death and sometimes catches himself thinking about calling him before reality hits all over again. He says he regrets not being around much when Max was young, but once Max got older, he tried to make up for it by stepping back into his life.
I really kind of feel like I got to make it up. You could be away from somebody for 10 years, knock on the door, walk through that door, and it's like you never left. That's close, and that's how he and I were, you know, that close.
The next day, Isaiah and Benny wait under Armand's orders for Simon to drive out. The moment he pulls up beside them, Isaiah opens fire, missing so badly he turns into Mr. Stormtrooper behind the trigger. Simon fires back and speeds off, with both men chasing after him. During the high-speed pursuit, Benny yells at Isaiah to shoot the tires, but he cannot hit those either. At the last second, Simon cuts a sharp corner, forcing them to slam on the brakes. Isaiah starts blaming Benny for the botched chase, but Benny fires back, saying Simon is swerving all over the road. They keep after him through the smoke and open fire again the moment they close the gap. Simon leads them into an abandoned lot, then cuts away at the very last second, sending them crashing straight into another vehicle. Their car flips over and Simon walks to the wreckage, where he finds Isaiah barely conscious. He demands to know who sent him, but Isaiah only spits back insults. Simon kicks him and asks again, and this time Isaiah finally gives him a name, Armand. Simon then takes Isaiah's wallet and leaves. Back at his apartment, Simon pulls credentials from the wallet and logs into Isaiah's LAPD profile, slipping back into the instincts of his old life as he opens classified files on both Gary and Isaiah Morrison. Neither man has ever been convicted, but Gary is tied to burglary, property damage, and known links to the East Side gangsters, a crew suspected in more than 30 killings over the past year. The file also confirms that Armand Tucker, the head of the East Side gangsters, has never been convicted. The moment Simon sees that, he makes a call and arranges for a package to be delivered to his address. Elsewhere, Armand is busy entertaining a few snow bunnies when Benny barges in and kills the mood instantly. Already annoyed, Armand snaps at him to lower his voice, then sends the women off to keep themselves occupied somewhere else in the house. He turns to his men and makes it clear he already knows Simon beat them, and he is disgusted by the humiliation they brought on themselves. He orders Benny to take the bandana off his neck because he is making the East Side look soft. Then he grabs Isaiah by the throat and drags him off. furious that he trusted him and he still failed. When Isaiah starts making excuses, Armand cuts him off, saying he already knows Simon is not some ordinary man, but this was supposed to be Isaiah's moment to prove himself. If Isaiah had pulled it off, he would have earned Armand's trust. Instead, Armand threatens his family, along with the pregnant woman he has on the side, if things go wrong again. Then he makes the order painfully clear: kill Simon and make sure he stays down this time. Nearby, one-eared elf and punkly clown Isaiah and Benny, like Simon, did not already beat both of them senseless not long ago. That only makes Armand even more furious. He orders the snow bunnies out and even threatens to kill one of them.
You skeleton-ass motherfucking drug addict hoe snorting up my shit. The fuck out my goddamn house. Killed a bitch in a week. God damn it.
A gunshot rings out, and the scene cuts to a man entering Alice's store to drop off a package for Simon. At the same time, Gary is out in the neighborhood playing basketball with another guy. He is clearly nice with it, but he leaves the game early. As he walks off, he notices a group of white men tailing him and breaks into a run. Unfortunately for him, he runs straight into a dead end, and the men quickly box him in. One of them grabs him and asks if he is lost. Right then, Simon drives by. The men tell him to keep moving, but Simon has already reached that full main character stage where he does the exact opposite. He walks straight at them, folds one with a kick, drops the second just as fast, and catches the third with a hard shot to the chest. That one somehow gets back up and throws a kung fu kick like Bruce Lee reincarnated, but Simon slips it and plants him right back on the floor. He then calls Gary and tells him to come with him. He asks why Gary lied to him about Chivo. Gary insists he did not lie. He only passed along what people were saying on the street. Simon presses him about his brother and the crash from the night before. He says Isaiah tried to kill him, then asks about Armand Tucker and whether Isaiah was the one who murdered Max. Gary says nothing, forcing Simon to ask if he is covering for his brother. Rather than answer, Gary gets out and walks off, only to double back for his backpack, not realizing Simon slipped a tracker inside. Simon drives away while Gary calls Isaiah and says they need to meet because he has something important to tell him. That call takes Simon exactly where he wants to go. Later that night, using the tracker, he follows Gary to an abandoned building where Armand and Detective Shaw are meeting. He plants trackers on Armand's car and the other vehicles, then slips inside after them. From the shadows, he watches Armand and Shaw observe a rival gang in the middle of a deal. Armand tells Shaw to hit them, but Shaw tells him to relax. Then he gives the order to another officer, and gunfire erupts. Once the shooting stops, Shaw and Armand walk over to inspect the drugs and cash the rival crew was trying to move. They collect everything, load it up, and drive away. Simon returns to his car, waits a moment, then follows. With the tracker guiding him, he tails them to Armand's warehouse. There, Armand tells his men where to store the money and drugs, and says everyone will get paid once the shipment moves. He also reminds Shaw how much more they could make if they raised the stakes. He is already dreaming bigger, even talking about buying a helicopter.
Helicopter. I always wanted one, man, you know what I'm saying? That way I can get a bird's eye view of my territory, you know what I'm saying? I can watch the little soldiers out there slanging and banging. In case a little motherfucker fuck up, you know what I'm saying? I can come in, you know, Vietnam Rambo style, you know, right out the side of that bitch. Blip, 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 blip. Drop, bitch!
Yeah, you'd been a Nam?
Been to none. You been to Compton? Vietnam ain't got shit on the motherfucking CPT, cuz.
After they leave, Simon breaks into the warehouse and studies Armand's stolen supply, making it obvious the man is deep in something dirty. He returns home, not knowing Isaiah, Benny, and Gary have been stationed outside under Armand's orders to alert him the moment Simon comes back. And Isaiah tells Gary to go home because things are about to get ugly. Inside, Simon is speaking with Alice, who asks for an update on what he has uncovered so far. Before he can answer, his tracker starts beeping. Armand and his men are close, very close. Outside, Armand's crew loads up and Isaiah is ordered to leave. Inside, Simon warns Alice they have company and sends her to hide in the back while he grabs his gun. The first intruder drops under Simon's fire. Then he opens up on the next four. Another man charges up the stairs and Simon drops him too. Alice hears movement outside and asks about the footsteps. Simon tells her it is the East Side gang, orders her to stay low, and leads her out through the back. But they run straight into more of Armand's men, and Simon drops them one after another. He takes out another gunman waiting by the car downstairs, then fires at an approaching vehicle, sending it crashing into nearby tanks and exploding. He then throws grenades that set off a chain of explosions below. When another shooter steps out, Simon tells Alice not to make a sound, then kills the man with a knife. He signals for Alice to come downstairs, then drops 2 more attackers on the way out. Just as they are about to escape, Armand steps out behind them and opens fire. Simon is hit, and Alice has to support him as she fires warning shots. She trades gunfire with Armand while he keeps shouting threats at her. Still firing towards Simon, Armand orders one of his men to get the car, then tells him to move out. Alice turns to Simon and begs him to stay with her, but he slips unconscious. A short while later, he wakes up at Alice's place and immediately clamps his hand around a man's throat. Alice rushes in and pulls him off, explaining that the man is her cousin, a hospital worker. Simon lets go, but the cousin warns that the struggle may have reopened his wounds and tells him to take it easy before he tears his stitches. Once Simon wakes again, he heads to Gary's house and knocks on the door. When no one answers, he lets himself in and starts searching the place. Before long, he finds a gun matching the exact description of the one used to kill his son. Just then, Isaiah bursts in and demands to know what he is doing, but Simon turns and aims the weapon at him, demanding to know if he was the one who used it on Max. Not long after, Simon lowers the gun, but Isaiah instantly pulls a hidden weapon while his friend eggs him on. Simon disarms him in seconds and drives a kick into him hard enough to put him down cold. Then he turns to Benny, drops him with 3 sharp punches, and moves on to the third man, beating him down just as quickly. Gary rushes in to help his brother, but Simon shoves him back and demands to know why he set him up. On the verge of tears, Gary insists he never betrayed him. Simon pushes harder, demanding to know why he sent him after Chivo if he knew Chivo was not responsible. Gary finally breaks and admits it was Detective Shaw. He says he overheard Shaw and Armand talking about how to get rid of Max. He tried to warn him that night, but by the time he made his move, it was already too late.
Shaw just shot him. I just shot him. Wiped the gun down, threw it over a fence. I hopped that fence, man. I grabbed the gun, I fucking ran. I ran, man, till I ain't fucking shit.
I sure enough wish you would have told me that a long time ago. I did not come to this town to get played. I want to come here and take care of one thing. I'm gonna go see Shaw. I hope you're not lying.
I'm sorry, man. They were gonna kill my family.
Later, Simon tells Alice he is going after Armand's men. She warns that it will only lead to more bloodshed, but Simon does not care. The only thing that matters now is finding the man who killed his son. Not long after, Armand meets with a tampon-looking ninja for a drug deal and demands the money up front. The deal collapses when the product turns out to be baking soda, making it clear Simon swapped the stash after sneaking into the warehouse. Big Money T orders his men to grab the cash and leave, but Armand pulls a gun on him. At that exact moment, Simon opens fire from the background, and one man drops. And Armand realizes Simon is somewhere nearby. Big Money T demands to know what is going on, but Armand snaps at him to shut up. He turns back, apologizes, and says things did not go as planned, but insists he still has a backup plan. Then he raises his gun and opens fire alongside his men. By the time the shooting ends, Big Money T is the only one left standing from his side. He warns Armand that if he kills him, his people will come looking for him. But Armand only sneers and says the LAPD will take the blame for his death.
It happens all the time. Ain't that right, Shaw? That's right.
As Armand and his men move through the building, Simon opens fire again. Shaw runs upstairs and pushes through a half-open door searching for him, but Simon grabs one of Armand's men outside, beats him down, and sends him crashing back down the stairwell. Simon spots another gunman and waits in hiding for the perfect moment. They exchange shots, but when the man runs out of bullets, Simon closes the distance, strikes him, and kills him. Then he steps into the open and runs into another man, whom he shoots again and again. Shaw keeps searching through the next room until he finally spots Simon and dives behind a bed, firing repeatedly. He taunts Simon to come out but gets nothing in return. Then, as he edges toward another doorway, Simon suddenly grabs his arm and yanks him inside, slamming him to the floor and kicking him hard. Shaw gets back up, but Simon drops him again. He comes forward once more and Simon hurls him into the wall. Shaw keeps attacking, but Simon keeps flinging him aside, overpowering him every single time. Then Armand walks in and finds Simon holding Shaw trapped in his grip. Shaw orders him to kill Simon on the spot, but Armand just watches as Simon chokes Shaw to death. There is almost something like respect in Armand's eyes as he calls Simon a white boy on a rampage.
I gotta hand it to you, partner. You're quite the father. Come back, run through the neighborhood, killing up all kind of niggas, Mexicans. Just a white boy on a rampage. But we still got this little dilemma, now, do we not?
But Simon immediately wrestles the gun from his hand and tells him he is not there to kill him. He only came for the man who murdered his son, and now that man is dead, they have no problem. Then he hands Armand his gun back and walks away. Armand calls him a real gangster as Simon disappears into the night, just as police flood the scene.
It's a cool motherfucker. That shit was gangster.